Furby. This is a push button.
This is a Furby switch. This is a Furby stripped down.
This is very basic. So you've got a piece of metal there, and then there's oh, where are we?
So
you can't see there. Do you want to do a film on this one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got a piece of metal there, and we've got a piece of metal there.
And at the moment, they are not touching. And I can actually see that on the camera now. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when you press the button on outside,
the metal touches. Yeah. So it's like the two pieces of wire touching again. So it's closed now. Now it's open. Yeah.
Okay. So that was I'm not sure if that was an on-off switch or something else, but
it was an on-off switch.
It was an on-off.
Basic on-off switch. Yeah.
Now we have switches in other robots, like this one in the mouth. So this is like a push-button switch, and when you put something on there, it makes it go into sort of an eating sequence.
Yeah. So it's a switch acting as a sensor again.
Yes.
As it was on this Furby, a switch acting as a sensor.
I can't remember what that one did.
It's on the back, so it's when you stroke it, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So switches can be used like sensors in this, so that you know, a robot senses its tongue's being touched, so it's being fed, and then the microcontroller will run a certain program. Yeah. So when that joins the electricity, it's sending a pulse like that button does,
or a level.
Yeah. Okay. Other sensors, other forms of switches using sensors. We've got a button on here on this guinea pig on the nose, and what happens here? So that's another button switch. When it goes into a wall. We're going to have a demonstration now. So you go like that. It goes, ooh, 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 ooh. And then it'll go backwards. Oh, there's a wall. And it'll go backwards. So,
So switch acting as a sensor?
Yes, because it'll change direction. And switch acting as a sensor on the Roomba. So all of this, it's like one... Is that one big switch, or is it several switches?
No, it's like a bumper bar.
It's a bumper bar.
And I think there's at least two switches, one on that side and one on the other side. So
yeah.
It knows which side the... Oops. Chaos. It knows which sides the impacts occurred on.
Okay, so it knows to turn left or turn right or go backwards or whatever. Okay, last thing on switches I wanted to talk about.
Interestingly, all those four devices that you just talked about here, Dolly, the Furby, Squawkus McCaw and the Roomba, they all use switches as sensors and to turn them on and off. And they've all got microcontrollers in them, and microcontrollers like a small computer.
We're going to talk about that in a few weeks' time.
That's why they're using switches as sensors.
I see. Okay. Right, last point was about the button. The last thing I wanted to say was this button, you don't just press it and it does something. You can use it in different ways. So, let's see, for instance, if you want to reset the doll, you hold this in while you switch this like that, and then you switch it the other way, and then you release this one, and that will reset the doll.
Right.
And there's some other things you can do with it as well.
Yeah.
So what's going on there?
Well, it's what's going on there is that those the switches then are acting as signals go into the microcontroller, and the microcontroller can tell that you are holding this switch in while switching that, and that sequence of operating those two switches means something in the microcontroller program. So then it runs that part of the program, and Dolly takes the appropriate action.
Okay, so when you press this or when you move this, it's sending different signals. There's a signal for this and there's a signal for that. And the microcontroller's programmed so that if it has this signal and then this signal, it does.
If it has this signal and the other signal, yes, because it can look at multiple things as well, and it can tell that you're holding a switch in whilst moving another switch and then releasing the switch, and it looks for that sequence of events.
Right.
So it's not just sort of connected to a switch. It can tell what you're doing with those switches in time, in a sequence of events, and that those sequences of events can mean different things and trigger different parts of the program.
So like we were talking about the capacitive touch sensors last week,
Mm-hmm.
when we're talking about switches are simple things, capacitive touch sensors are simple things, but because they're all running to a microcontroller, which is like a very, very clever little computer, you can get robots to do wonderful things.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I'll just say capacitive touch sensors, the principle of operation is very different than that of switches. But,
Oh, yes.
But they can still be used as switches when interpreted by a microcontroller.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's it. It's rather a long session this time.
And rambling.
I hope not. So next week we're going to talk about light sensor, the light sensor that Dolly has. And I should think that'll be a bit shorter next week.
Does she have one in both or just one eye?
We know, don't we? Because we've done an experiment. So, yes, that'll be next Saturday. So, any comments? Welcome. We welcome comments. We find them interesting and...
Tell us what mistakes we've made.
Yeah.